4 years, our kids will be in middle school by then, but we are this is, I think, what we do in education. The pendulum swings one way, and then, 5 years later, it swings back the other way, but I'm pretty optimistic that it's developmentally appropriate.
So this is just continuing these are some expressive language activities that you can do with your children. Again, books, wordless books, pretend play, cooking Play-Doh, toy animals, train sets, cars, dress up, play food, bubbles. And what's really great about this is that, going back to what I said before about pretend play and playing with one item and then expanding upon that, you can then incorporate the Play-Doh with the toy animals, with the cars. And you can have the cars going through the Play-Doh and pretending that the Play-Doh is mud or something, or making tracks in the Play-Doh. And so then the toy animals can eat the Play-Doh. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. What you can do is really just take the lead from your child. But you can definitely work with a lot of different toys together and really make it a language-rich environment for your child. Bubbles is really great. Any kid loves bubbles. They are just fascinated by them. It's the funniest thing in the world. I think anything from like babies to 5 and 6 year olds are like bubbles. So that's really great. Play food is another really great thing. You can pretend to cook, you pretend to feed, you pretend to give it to you. You can ask them for more. You can ask them for something different. Then you can switch roles. You can then be the one to cook for your child, and the child has to ask you for things. So it's a lot of that back and forth, a lot of the receptive and expressive language, requesting, commenting, questioning. So it's really, really great. Books are wonderful because, again, you talk about the pictures, you can talk about what to anticipate next, what do you think is going to happen on the next page. You can talk about how people or the characters feel in the story. So you can look at the pictures and say, how do you think that bunny feels? How do you think that girl feels? So not only listening to the words, but also learning to look at the pictures and get some stuff from the pictures as well, and not just from the words. Wordless books are really great too, because you can make up your own story. And so every time you read the book, it could be a different story, or it could be the same one, like Molly was saying before, how children love to read the same book over and over again. Maybe with the wordless book, it'll be the same story over and over and over again, and then it'll develop over time, and you can expand upon that and make it, be very, very simple, and then really expand upon that. And you can really do a lot with that as well. So any and all of these are really great at any age level, from 2 years old all the way up to 5, 6, 7 years old, because children learn through play. And that's just what it is. They learn through play, and you can really make it a meaningful interaction with your child. Meaningful with language, meaningful with social pragmatic skills, meaningful with learning to read and write, and so you can really make it meaningful through play. So I think the one thing I would love to encourage you guys is to just think about is play is very, very important. Just as much as anything else, play is extremely important for children. That is how they learn. This is my slide. So to promote receptive language, read a book, ask your child WH and yes/no questions. So WH questions is who, what, where, when, why questions. So again, you can ask who is in the story. You can ask where are they. You can ask, when did the girl fall off the bike? Whatever the story is about. So there's really a lot of questions that you can ask, and you can promote the answers for as well. If they're not yet quite there to answer the questions appropriately, you can give them the answers just so that they understand a who question is a person, a what question is a thing, a when question is a time. So you can really try to promote those answers with them. And yes/no questions as well, the same thing. Just if they can't answer appropriately, you can model for them. If you say, is the girl sad? Yes, she's sad. So that oh yes, she is sad. So you can really model the language for them and model the answers if they're not quite there yet to answer the questions. Multiple step directions during daily activity. Getting dressed. Go upstairs, get your shirt, your socks, and your pants. They should be able to follow those simple, everyday directions. Getting dressed in the morning, getting undressed, getting pajamas on, getting into the bathtub, getting ready for dinner time. They should be able to follow those directions. And as your child gets older, they will be able to follow even more directions. So a 2 and 3 year old might be able to follow like 1 to 2 step. As they get older, they may be able to follow a slew of directions, especially if it revolves around their daily activities that they're doing every single day. So that's definitely a great one to do. Questions about their day at school. Who did you play with today? What did you have for snack? So I love when we ask the kids, how was school? Great. What did you do today? Nothing. Well, because to them, that's a lot of, like you're asking them a lot. But if you make it very specific, who did you sit next to during snack time? Did you color at the easel? Did you go outside on the playground? And if they say, yes, I did go outside on the playground, where did you play on the playground? Who did you play with? So be a little bit more specific with your questions when you're asking them about their day, especially if they're at school, even if it's just for a couple of hours or if they're for like a long extended day and they're going to a couple of different places. So you can ask more specific questions to get more answers from them. And again, if they're not able to tell you specifically what they played with or what they had for snack or who they sat next to. I know a lot of times teachers will send home an email or a newsletter or they'll have it written outside the door what they did today. Take a picture of it with your phone, make a mental note of it. Look at the book, try, and I know sometimes they'll write the book that they read or the snack that they had today. Make a mental note of it, and that way you know the answer. So when you're asking them a question later on, what did you have for snack today? I don't know. I think you had either apples or bananas, and give them two choices and see if they can come up with the answer. So try to promote them to answer you. Try to get them to understand that when you're asking a question, you want them to have an answer for you. So this can be as early and as young as 2- and 3-year-olds, or as much as into elementary school as well. Because I know a lot of elementary school kids will say nothing because they're at school all day, and it's a lot to process for them. It's a lot of information coming into them. So when you say, what'd you do today? I don't know, nothing. That's a typical response. But if you're a little bit more specific with your questioning, you will get a lot more in return from them. And then activities to improve receptive language. Again, read books. I Spy, Simon Says, Twister, puzzles, grocery shopping, and play. So again, with the grocery shopping, we talked about that before. Ask them to go get you 3 different items in the produce section, if you're in the produce section with them. So having them follow multiple step directions. Reading books, again, asking questions, having them answer them. I spy something, and then you can describe something that you're seeing. So you're trying to get them to hold all of this auditory information and be able to look around and say, oh yeah, she was talking about that, or he was talking about that. So that's a really great game as well. Simon Says, being able to listen and attend to the words and making sure that they are understanding what is being said. Twister, following directions again, which is a really great thing. Puzzles. Puzzles are really great because you can actually ask them to find you different colored pieces. So even if you're doing like a large puzzle, a floor puzzle, you can say, I'm looking for this piece. I think there's a little bit of red. Can you find all the pieces that have red on them? Or we're trying to put the police car together. Let's see if we can find the pieces that kind of look like they could belong to the police car. So having them really look and listen to your directions, listen to what you're asking them to do, and having them, cooperate with you and finish the puzzle with you. And then again, play, just completely just playing with them and really just engaging them and questioning them and having them answer questions is really, really great. So social pragmatic skills, pretend play with a theme and a schema, turn-taking skills during a conversation, and appropriate greetings with familiar people, family, friends, and teachers. So a lot of times children will come to school and they'll go into the classroom, they know that they have to say hello to their teachers, they know to say hello to their friends. But again, you want to promote that with them as much as you can as far as with family, going in and out of the house, or with their siblings, or with you. Good morning, how are you today? Good, how are you? So just teaching them that appropriate back and forth of saying hello or good morning, or saying goodbye, or asking another person, how are you today? Or being able to go up to a friend and say, I want to play with you. Can we play in the blocks? Can we play here? So just trying to really promote a lot of that at home. And again, this can be done through play. You can role play at home, and you can pretend to be your friend's child, your child's friend at school, and say, okay, I'm going to pretend to be Luke. If you want to play with Luke, what do you say? So you can try to do that at home as well, as a lot of those play schemas. And then turn-taking skills during a conversation. A lot of times children will want to talk when you're talking, so trying to teach them that my turn to talk, your turn to listen, then when it's your turn to talk, I will listen. So teaching them those skills as well, even if it's just when you're talking over dinner with their siblings, they're going to want to speak when their siblings are speaking, saying it's your brother's turn to speak now. After he's done, you will have a turn. Hold what you want to say in your head, and then you'll have your turn. So just trying to teach those turn-taking skills during a conversation. And yeah, pretend play. Play is very, very important, extremely important.
So at about age 5, those grocery trips, those everyday tasks that we do, I would even start to up the ante with some of the literacy skills. So as you take your 5 or 6-year-old to the grocery store and send them off into the produce aisle, I need something that's a fruit that's yellow and it starts with an O or the L sound, so that they can come back with a lemon, so that you can get those literacy skills even just in a trip to the grocery store. To grow readers at home. We've talked a lot about read alouds. I could talk about that all day. Create a literacy-rich home. So we want a home that there are books that are easily accessible to kids at their level, engaging books. Let your children see you reading. And what I mean by that is reading an actual book. Not reading a Kindle, not reading an iPad, because children don't necessarily transfer that what you are reading on your palm, on your screen, is an actual book. I see this all the time with my 7-year-old. We will have times that are device-free and we're all reading, and my husband reads on a Kindle app on his phone, and she will actually say to him, hey, I thought it's tech-free time, and he'll say, well, I'm reading on my Kindle app, but they don't naturally make that transfer. So having kids see you read an actual newspaper, an actual magazine, an actual book, and put away the devices. I'm going to show you some pretty astonishing research, which we sort of are starting to get to the point where we can understand technology and its impact on the brain. We've got a huge amount of work to do in that capacity. But I could talk for days about the importance of reading aloud. And I'm talking about reading aloud not just to 2-year-olds, but reading aloud to 8-year-olds. For those of you who have kids at home that are older, we tend to see a big dip in families reading aloud to their children right around 2nd grade, because right about 2nd grade, kids become independent readers and they want to read on their own. And so we tend to sort of stop that story time at home. And it's just as important to continue to read. We continue to add to kids' expressive vocabulary, to build their comprehension, to give them background knowledge. So continue to read all the way through middle school, and continue to shift it up. So you can use a book on CD with your 2nd grader just as easily as you may be able to read to a 3-year-old. We know in really powerful things about the power of being read to. And we sort of equate that reading aloud is a bedtime activity, and that's not necessarily, that doesn't work for every family. Some parents on Wednesday nights, I teach till 9 o'clock at night in the city. I can't do the read aloud then, but I could do it the next morning as my daughter is eating her breakfast, or we could do it at a different part of the day. So find a time that reading aloud works for you. I certainly have had the days where I'm like, you can go to bed, I'm too tired to read, but finding another time to do that. We know through tons of research that kids who are regularly read to have higher vocabularies, they have more profound background knowledge, which is then going to improve their comprehension. They are better at all of the foundational skills of reading, which is decoding and letter sound awareness. And this research is longitudinal research where some researchers looked at 1st graders. And they looked at their oral vocabulary, which was a measure of how much they were read to. They followed that same group of kids for a decade, and they found that in 11th grade, we could predict, just by how frequently a child was read to at home, we could predict their high school SAT scores and their comprehension. So that's pretty powerful research that shows how important that those reading aloud things are. When I say a literacy-rich home, I am pretty skilled at making everything literacy-rich in my home. This is simple stuff like a parent took a muffin tray and put shaving cream and colored dye in it, and you can just take the wall and smear it with shaving cream and have your kids practice their letters in there. I'm pretty convinced that my daughter learned her letters through these bath toys. As we would clean up, these I got at the dollar store, you can buy them at Stop and Shop. But as we would clean up the bath, the water's draining, I would say to her, find a letter that is blue. I'm looking for the F. Find the F is blue. And at 2 years old, she could start to hand me those letters. And we would start talking about words that had those letters. So every activity can be, every routine can be literacy rich. Setting the table. I need you to put something out that starts with a sp sound, and they would find the spoon. Labeling things. When my daughter was 2 and 3 years old, it was sort of comical. Everything had a label. And I tend to label things in lowercase letters, because more typically we write with lowercase letters. So every part of the house being labeled, having kids be able to play with letters, and then most importantly, put away the devices. So it's 2017, obviously very recent study out of the American Speech and Hearing Association, was able to actually connect kids who had language delays. The more time a parent held with a handheld device, the more likely that child was to have speech delays. Pretty powerful things. And the American Academy of Pediatrics really recommends 0 screen time from age 0 to 2, no screen time whatsoever. And for ages 2 to 5, they recommend screen time being an hour a day, and that's really high quality stuff. So that would be the Sesame Streets and all of those, Daniel Tiger and all those different things that come out. All of those organizations have early childhood language and literacy people on them. So that would not include SpongeBob. My 10, 8, and 7-year-olds are appalled that we have banned SpongeBob in our house, but it's not high quality programming. So really an hour of screen time a day. And we know that that's not consecutive. Certainly that's not going to sit your child down for an hour, but it all adds up. Every time we are at the grocery store and there's a long line, we're very tempted to give our child the phone to sort of appease them while they wait. That 5 minutes there, coupled with the half-an-hour show later, we're looking at a cumulative hour time. Instead, while that child waits in line for the line to get shorter for us to check out, I spy something that's red, or I spy the letter F on that magazine color, or see if you can find a candy bar in the aisle that starts with a T. So all of those things, sort of getting around your temptation. And certainly, there are times when it's appropriate to hand your child a screen. If you're at, we were at JFK, the customs line. There's not much to look at in the customs line, and we were in it for probably 2 hours. Yes, that's a good time to pull out that device and use it towards our hour. And really being cognitive and purposeful in your reading. Talk about the reading that you as an adult are doing. It can be everything from a mindless beach book to an email or a recipe. So as you're making dinner, pulling out the cookbook and saying, I'm going to look in this book because I forget how many cups of flour I need to put in this pasta. So really talking about the reading that you're doing. And I've spoken about letting kids see actual books. I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see some pretty powerful research that shows that kids sort of, I've worked with 3-year-olds who will come to me and they'll say, so I was reading, and they make the swiping motion. Sort of comical, but it's also a little bit scary when kids are sort of equating screen time with reading and not getting hands-on books. And modeling literacy as a social activity. So having your kids see you in a book club, or having your kids see a book club with your older kids. My daughter and I this summer were in a book club. I'm a big fan of Bruce Springsteen, so I was reading his memoir, Born to Run, and she, in 2nd grade, was reading a Bruce Springsteen chapter book called Who Was Bruce Springsteen. There's that whole series of who was and where is and all those. And so we had a book club. Clearly, I'm reading a text at my level, and she's reading a text at her level, but we can come together and have, wow, did you know that he grew up there, or he did this? So seeing that social activity. My child knows that in our house, we give books. That is the book that we give for birthday parties, for holidays, because the power of books is so important to convey. Make your library visits a routine. In our house, we typically do it on Saturday mornings. We go to the coffee shop. She can choose a hot chocolate or a treat. Then we go together and we have time that is a set-aside time. I think the library here does a really great job of a million different children's programs. A couple years ago, they had a caricature artist who, when you got your first library card, would come and draw a picture of you, and we would frame it, so that they start to see the library as not just a place to sort of kill a couple minutes, but a part of our routine and a part of our life. Seeing film adaptations of books, this is something I love doing with upper elementary kids as well. So we're going to be in a book club, my 4th grader and I actually did this with my stepdaughter. We read the book Wonder, and then we went to the movie together, and we talked about how the movie was different, or how you didn't see the character in your head when you were reading the book like the character looked like on the screen. So there are a ton of film adaptations from books, and I can help you find some of those, so that it's a reward. You can't watch the movie Freaky Friday until you read the chapter book first. And we're going to read it together, and you're going to be more motivated to read it. And then we have it as a social event. And audiobooks. Obviously, anytime you're in the car, audiobooks are fabulous. I've worked with parents who go to the library, and the library has a nice supply here of books on CD. And so around their child's nap time, when they're 3 years old or so, they will read them a book, and then they will walk out of the room, and they will put a book on CD for the child to listen to. Usually those book bags come with the book itself. The child can flip through the book while they're napping, and so there's getting more language abilities as well. All sorts of board games that encourage language and literacy. Obviously, the pragmatic part of board games is that turn-taking and the language that goes around that. But I brought some things as well that you can take a look at. Headbands is a great game. So every player has a card that they put on their forehead so they can't see their card. And it's sort of like 20 questions. Everybody else can see their card, so this boy has a hamburger. And he starts asking questions that help him get to what his card is. Am I a food? Am I an animal? Am I all those things? And so you're starting to categorize things. All sorts of concentration games. Zingo. Our 10-year-old still plays Zingo. It'll usually end up in a fight over who gets to use the zinger, but it's a great one. Story cubes. I use with kids who have challenges generating stories. It's a pack of cubes that each side of the cube has a different picture. So you'll roll your dice, and on the table you'll see a cube that has an alien, and it has an apple, and it has a dog, and you have to, off the top of your head, generate a story around that. I actually keep some of these in my bag, and when we go to a restaurant and there's a wait, that's what we pull out, rather than that's the time that many parents are tempted to do the iPad or what have you. We use that as our sort of wait time activity because the box is like this big, so it's really portable and engages kids from 4 years old to, my 72-year-old mother will play it. All sorts of boggle games, alphabet soup games. So there's just so many different games that can engage kids around language and literacy. And I brought a couple things that I wanted to showcase. First, if you don't know these are fabulous. It's called a fluency phone. I bought this at Lakeshore. They're crafty. You can make them yourself at, you just go to Home Depot and get PVC piping. And what this is it gives kids instant auditory feedback. So they whisper into it, and then the sound is projected back into their ear. So what I like to do, and I'll pass it around, you can see how it's pretty cool. What I like to do with these is I'll have kids read to themselves, read into your fluency phone. Or if I have a kid who is struggling to sound out a word or struggling with an articulation of a letter, it's just nice instant feedback. So I'll pass that around, you can take a look at that. When I work with 4, and 5, and 6-year-olds, I really want them to do finger pointing to the actual text. And so all sorts of gimmicks that can encourage that. At Halloween, we see all these fake nails. You can buy them at Target or the dollar store. I'll have them, point to the letter F on that page, point to the letter G. This may not work for every kid, so you can buy these laser fingers. They look like this. I bought them at Target for $1, and you turn them on. In my house, of course, there was a lot of tattletaling of, she's putting her laser in my eye and stuff, but you can see that it's really engaging for kids to finger point and start to track letters and such. What else do you want to add?
I really love Zingo, because I think that with Zingo, what you can do is you can actually do it a little bit differently than just kind of,
That's this
take
one?
them out. Yeah, that one, you can actually not even, you can play with this here and have the two, and then what you can do is you can say, okay, I'm gonna describe one to you, which one is it? That way it makes it a little bit more challenging, so for children who are a little older, and you are working on their ability to not be as impulsive to grab something and be able to understand the language and be able, again, it's like almost like an I Spy, but there's two choices, so you can actually make it more of a receptive game where they have to listen to the description and then figure out which one you are talking about. This is my all-time favorite game. I have it in the preschool version and the school age version. It's called Spot It. Fabulous game. Every card has a match on every other card. And it's really great for language, and it's really great because there's different ones. So this one has letters on it. There's ones that's a sports one, there's just a regular general one, there's one with animals on it. So it really engages children being able to recall those names really quickly, because whoever gets the match first gets that card. And at the end,
And the tin is about this
Yeah,
big,
it's
so
great.
it's another one of those toss in your bag games. I use it in my reading. I have a small business here where I work with readers, and I use it to build fluency, because the quicker you can spot those matches, the quicker it's mimicking the speed with which you want to read.
yeah,
So
and
it's
it does help also with the older children if I am working on that ability to rapid recall, if they are having a little bit of trouble, or quickly naming that item, whether it's the animals or something else, is really helpful for that as well. And it actually was a little bit of a competition, especially among the older children. I use it to my advantage. I say to them, if I get the card, if I get the match, we have to practice whatever we're doing during the session. And if you get the match, then it's kind of like a free, like a free turn almost, like you don't have to practice with me. So it actually motivates them to want to get the cards quicker than I would. But these are all really great because, again, they all encompass turn taking, and that's a really great skill to teach your child as well. And matching games, huge fan of matching memory games. I think those are wonderful. I think it's really great, again, to, if it's animals, let's say, you could talk about the animals that have been turned over. Tell me about the dog. What sound does it make? What does it look like? So again, you're promoting that expressive, descriptive language. Same thing with older children as well. So it's really great, and these are also wonderful as well. I mean, they're all wonderful. I wouldn't add any other ones that I can think of right now, but these are really great. So what's this one? This one is for
similar, short. It's I would use it for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. So it's similar to Zingo in that vowels come out, and they're trying to build a word with vowels.
What's
Zingo.
It's called What's New,
Yep.
GNU.
What's new?
And
Yeah.
Zingo now has come out, when we are working with elementary school kids, sight words, those words that kids need to instantly pick up, are really, really challenging. And Zingo now has a sight word version that I would love.
Oh,
Sight words, yep.
That's great to
And there's
know.
also a math one as well.
This is like this, a video that my older kids used to watch, and I know you want a little bit of screen time, but how do you feel about like the letter factory?
So there are a million
Yeah,
different
that's
apps that are great and such. I'm fine with them as long as they're counting towards your, yeah. So another one that I like, I like Endless Alphabet, I like I like Teach Your Monster to Read. I don't love like the Starfall ones and such, I just don't think they're that great. There are days that, we've all had these days where you're sick and the last thing you want to do is read to your kid. There are great websites that have read-alouds that you can log into. There's one called storylineonline.net, and the kid can choose according to, some celebrity reads the book to the child, and some of the celebrities are sort of like B-list celebrities like from 20 years ago, but they can choose according to the book. So there are definitely days where I'm like, I have bronchitis, the last thing I want to do is read, but I'm still going to get a read aloud by using some of those screen times. So being purposeful with your screen time is fine, but I would steer more towards language and literacy things as opposed to like a hockey game or what have you.
And I agree, and I think also, I use the iPad a lot with the younger kids just to motivate them sometimes, because sitting down for 30 minutes or 45 minutes can be a lot with me. But what I also do is I make it interactive. I don't give them the iPad and I sit back and do nothing. I give them the iPad and we do it together. So if it is a matching game, let's say I have a really great matching game, any matching game, but, and we take turns during the matching game, but we also talk about it. It's an animal matching game, so every time we turn over a card, we have to tell one thing about that animal. So I make it a little bit more interactive. It's not like I'm just giving them the iPad and like sitting back. So I think if you can make it an interactive game as much as you can, and again, there's going to be days where you're sick, not feeling well, you've got a million things to do, you got an important phone call to return, so you need them to just kind of like by themselves for 5 minutes and occupy themselves, that's fine. But if you can make it as much as possible and more interactive experience and something that is a little bit more with you and your child versus just them by themselves, I think is a little bit more meaningful as well for them, so.
How do you feel about the RAS Kids program for the elementary school kids? I am having a problem with my first grader. He loves it, he wants to do it, but he's not reading the book.
Right.
And the level is so low that he doesn't really have to read it, he can still answer all the questions correctly.
Right, so so you're getting into lots of things that I could talk forever about. I don't believe in the leveling system. I think it's totally inappropriate. And there's actually a lot of research now that's coming out saying when kids are reading independently, levels are only meant to be a teacher device for when kids are getting small group instruction. So if I'm working with a child at home, I would let them choose a text of any level. It's okay.
And have them read the words they know and then
And we know that kids, when they get to choose a text, A, they're more motivated, and B, their background knowledge and their motivation to read that text that they've chosen, your instinct is like, that book's too hard for you. But if they're coming to you and they want to read that, or that level passage is too hard for you, if they want to read it, their comprehension usually steps up to the plate. So what I don't like about it is that it's leveled. But if it's an online program that they're getting text, I'm fine with it, but I would eliminate the levels. Other questions?
I was, first of all, thank you. It was really helpful. I got a lot of good nuggets. So my son is in kindergarten, and we're new to public school and new to Common Core and, reading and kindergarten thing. And I'm finding it really frustrating when he's supposed to be recognizing these sight words and he can't retain it. And I'm like, how are you not? You just,
Yeah.
And I know that's unhelpful, obviously. So I'm just trying to get a sense of kind of when you know that, you showed your 2.5-year-old who can see you on a UPS truck and then retain that and point it out. If your child is not, is struggling to retain what they're seeing and learning, I guess I'm trying to figure out what is developmental and what is a bigger issue and kind of trying to sort that out.
So there's lots of things that we can unpack with that. First of all, if it's only sight words, I think we don't teach sight words very effectively. What we tend to do is we show a kid a word on a flashcard and we sort of drill them.
Yeah.
Not appropriate. It's not inappropriate, but it's not effective. Just what you're saying, there's no transfer. So instead, I would have them build the word. So here's the word, let's look at the word, let's say the word, because we know that kids add a word to their internal word bank and they say it. So you could use gimmicks like the Fluency Farm. So they need to say it, they need to see it, they need to build it. So getting a cookie sheet from the dollar store and getting magnets, let's build the word, or let's write it on the whiteboard. Or in my office I have that kinesthetic sand, and I literally have them write the word in kinesthetic sand. And then what I do is I send them to an authentic book, that's one that they've chosen, let's just say this is the book. And the sight word is there.